This week on Engage the Sage.
Hi everyone, I'm Don Saucier. Welcome to this week's episode of Engage the Sage. This week, I'm going to talk about things that you can do during the grumpy time of the semester. If you've taught before, you're probably familiar with the grumpy time of the semester. This is when the semester starts to feel like it's running a little long. For me, this is probably about 2/3 or 3/4 of the way through the semester when I start to get just a little bit grumpier. As I've discussed before, I advocate infusing empathy into my classes. And I try to infuse empathy into all components of my classes. Everything from the syllabus to the course structure and policies to the assignments and the assessments. I try to infuse empathy in my classes to support my students' learning and their success. In infusing empathy in my classes, I'll work really hard, even to provide any reasonable accommodation that I can for my students to help them succeed. This is something that's really important to me. But during the grumpy time of the semester, I might be experiencing a little bit of compassion fatigue. At this time of the semester, I'm a little worn out, and I might be a little less able or less willing to be as empathetic as I would otherwise be for my students. I may be worn down by the drop in attendance I sometimes see in my classes at this point in the semester. I may be a little bit demoralized when my students who attend my classes over Zoom have those videos off. Now, as you may have seen before, the policy for Zoom in my classes is that if you attend over Zoom, I would like your video to be on. This is going to help you learn, and it's going to help me to teach you. If you can't have that video on, that's fine, but I ask that you let us know. I don't make my students tell me why they need to have those videos off because I understand there are circumstances that are going on that may contribute to that they don't want to share with me, and that's fine. But when the videos are off and they're not telling me and they're not engaging my participation prompts and they're staying signed into the class even after it ends, that does start to make me a little bit grumpy. I view my classroom as an oasis away from all the personal and professional challenges of my life. But during the grumpy time, the classroom might be a little bit more of a challenge than it would be in other times of the semester. So I'm going to share with you 5 things that I try to do during the grumpy time of the semester to make myself less grumpy. And in doing so, I try to make that teaching and learning experience with my students more gratifying and fulfilling for me, even during the grumpy time. The first thing that I try to do to make myself less grumpy during the grumpy time is to recommit to infusing empathy in my classes. I remind myself that being empathetic in my classes is important for supporting my students' learning and their success, which is why I teach. I remind myself that empathy is beneficial not only for them, but for me because it makes that experience more fulfilling. I remind myself that I don't know what my students are going through, and they're experiencing challenges that they don't need to share with me, and I might not be able to fix any of those challenges they're facing outside of my class. But by me being empathetic in my class, I might lighten their loads a little bit. Knowing that I can help my students through their challenges indirectly through being empathetic in my classes is one thing that does make me a little less grumpy. The second thing that I do during the grumpy time of the semester is I save some amazing content in my classes. When I'm mapping out the structure and the topics of my classes, I always put some things in at the grumpy time of the semester that I'm going to look forward to. Some content that's just going to be that much better for me and better for my students to help me even when my energy starts to dissipate and I'm a little bit grumpy. The third thing I do to help me and my students through the grumpy time is to have not only amazing content, but also amazing assignments and assessments at this point. The grumpy time of the semester is a great time to have especially engaging and fulfilling activities and assignments in your class. So thinking about ways that I can get my students to creatively and personally demonstrate their learning about content really fulfills me to see the wonderful teaching and learning that we're doing together. The fourth thing that I do during the grumpy time of the semester is I think about how I can include mental health days on my schedule. There are a couple ways you can think about doing a mental health day, but what the purpose is to focus on your students and yourself, taking care of yourselves and providing a little space and time to do that. One way you can do a mental health day in your class is to actually have your class, but to do something a little different, something that's a little bit more revitalizing, something a little bit more personally meaningful for your students. So they're dealing with your content, but they're doing it in a way that's much more enriching than maybe an average lecture could be. Another option is to have your mental health day actually be a day in which you cancel class and you give that time for your students to do something outside of class as comp time, or maybe even give a self-care assignment for your students to do. And when I'm thinking about scheduling in these mental health days, I try to anticipate when they would be. But this doesn't prevent me from being flexible and putting one in more spontaneously if we need one. The fifth thing that I do during the grumpy time of the semester to try to make myself less grumpy is to invest in my own self-care. So what I might do at this point, I might spend more time with my family. I might exercise more. That's working out is something that always kind of clears my head. I might commiserate with my colleagues. I might crowdsource challenges that I'm facing in the classroom and other parts of my life to try to connect with people and feel like I have that social support system activated for me. One of the things I do a lot of all the time, but especially during the grumpy time, is I watch what we call silly things with my kids. Silly things are what we call YouTube videos. And right now, me and my daughter are watching all the Sniper Wolves. Another thing that I do all the time, but especially during the grumpy time, is I try to look for some levity in the world around me. For instance, just yesterday, I went into one of the bathrooms on campus, and there was a dude in the stall, and he was on his speakerphone while he was doing his business in the bathroom stall. And I heard him say to the person he was talking to, "Nah, dude, the standard deviation is the variance squared." Now, he was incorrect about that, but there was no way I was getting involved in that conversation, and after the fact, it was hilarious. So there you have 5 things that I do during the grumpy time to try to make me less grumpy. And I'm hoping that you can use these to make yourself less grumpy and to support your students during the grumpy time of the semester. The whole idea of my teaching philosophy is trickle-down engagement. We also call this engage the sage. And what this means is that my level of engagement affects my students' level of engagement and affects their learning. If I'm grumpy, I'm interrupting that process. So what I want to do is to make sure that I'm emotionally ready to bring the engagement all the time and to pay special attention to it during the grumpy time of the semester. When I'm less grumpy, I'm better able to engage and to teach my students successfully. In the comments below, I would love to hear how you get you and your students through the grumpy time of the semester. Thank you for watching this episode of Engage the Sage. Please like, subscribe, sign up for notifications, share us on social media, and we'll see you next time on Engage the Sage.